We'll definitely get that stuff to you.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
I'm going to get started here. Okay, I'm going to get started because I figured if we wrap up a little early, no one's going to be angry with me, being that everybody's going to be lined outside of lunch. Nothing like being the last session of the conference. So I am so excited that there are more than 2 people in there. So thank you. My name is Ray Ann Smith. I am from Hempfield School District in the east, not the one outside of Pittsburgh. But for you Pittsburgh people, I did grow up in Johnstown. So I have a little bit of Western PA in me. So I very intentionally do not have the link in here for, in fact I want to do this, for the presentation yet. There is something that we are going to be doing that I did not want to give away by having people swiping through the presentation. So you will get that about, I don't know, 10, 15 minutes into it. It's not to make you stay till the bitter end. I have been coming to these conferences for years, and sometimes you figure out it's a good fit, sometimes you're like, not so much. I did have someone come up and ask me what age groups this is appropriate for. I have to tell you, I hate my title, so maybe you can send me a suggestion for a new one if you stay. But basically, this is kind of unplugged coding activities, but not code.org unplugged coding activities. You don't need me to come up and showcase their products. I have one activity that I adapted from them. So I get these activities from other places, but the subheading really describes it better, but it's still a mouthful. These are offline activities for problem solving and computational thinking. The way I packaged it recently in my district, but it was too late to change the title here, was brain breaks that teach problem solving and computational thinking. So in my mind, and really you can have team building and collaboration in there too. So in my mind, that's a K-12 skills that are needed. But a lot of these, to be fully transparent, I work in a K-6 environment. So I would say probably a lot of these are more K-8 kind of geared. But I have covered this same content for the last 2 summers in a grad course for K-12 teachers at Millersville University. And they keep inviting me back, so obviously there's a K-12 appeal there in their mind anyway. And those teachers, as I was talking to them, because I am there a full day, the high school teachers, there were things they could adapt. And even in my own district, I do have a high school adaptation, at least for one of the activities, definitely middle school, but really it just depends on where your kids are at and what your needs are. So like I said, I will give the link to this after we get a little bit down the road because of the one activity. Okay, so, and I will put this slide back up at the end, and also you will have access to it when you have the presentation. So in this, students are going to practice computational thinking, but I love the soft skills as much as the computational thinking and coding that they learn, because they do learn persistence, and I have not run across very many kids that do not need to practice that skill on a regular basis. They just want to give up. They don't want to figure it out. They're all group activities where they're collaborating and they're communicating, and then yes, there are coding skills. And the computational thinking competencies are part of ISTE, so that fits in with that. The coding skills that they learn specifically are listed here, and it is true, I think that we focus down to functions. I'm sorry, loops, and then we kind of drop off on the last 3. And I have tried to include some activities on the last 3, but that is not where the bulk of them are, so that is something I continue to work on. I do have a Google site that is a continual work in progress that will have the activities that I'm going to show you this morning, and then more, and I am constantly trying to add to them. As our students in my district progress and build their coding skills, that's when we'll go further down the road. But right now, most of them need a lot with the first 3, and that's where we kind of have to start. If you have questions or things to interject, I'm used to interruptions, so feel free to just call out. And can everybody hear me? Okay? I have a teacher voice, so I'm not used to standing behind a podium. Okay, so the sample activities that I'm going to start with are going to deal with some things with vocabulary, communication, and persistence. It is important to build the vocabulary before you get started. This is a picture of a whiteboard where some 6th graders were doing one of the activities that I'll get to later. And it was very important that they covered some vocabulary before they got started. So, on that note, let's get started. This is one of my original activities, and by original I don't mean I came up with it, but I did put a little twist on it. I mean, as teachers, how many things are really original? We just repackage and revise what other people have. But if I were doing this with a class, this is a coding activity that covers actions, sequences, and conditionals. And if I were doing this with a class, I would ask the kids to either pull out a piece of paper or a whiteboard or possibly their iPads, because we're a one-to-one iPad district, so why waste paper? I have them often draw on their iPads. But since I didn't really know how much paper to bring, and I flew on a 10-seater plane from Lancaster to Pittsburgh, I did not bring paper and markers for you. So if you have a device, you can go to this bit.ly, this Padlet, if you want to draw something on your device and share it, but you do not have to. I wasn't sure if I was even going to put that in there. But I want you to envision in your mind, at the very least, and if you have paper, that's great, what you think the very first computer programmer looked like. And I will tell you, the reason why I came up with this part of the activity is one day I was in front of a class of 4th graders. My technology was not cooperating, and I needed to give them something to do while I did that. And I'm so glad that happened, because I love this part. So do you have kind of a picture in your mind what you think? And this is why I didn't give you the link. Did they look anything like any of these people? Now these are adults from the grad class on the yellow paper, and these on the iPads are the kids. What are some similarities or some observations that you see between what you thought? Yep, lots of glasses. I don't wear my contacts anymore. I must be smarter if I wear my glasses. What else?
They're all men.
The majority of them are men. Now we do have a female here and here, and I'm not really sure about her. She does look like someone from Hidden Figures. I'm not sure. But the majority are men. And the interesting thing I found with that is Hempfield is in Lancaster County. We're a suburban district with a very broad range of backgrounds of our kids. So depending on the school and whether or not the parents of the students were white collar or blue collar, the blue collar schools, they were almost all men when I did this. The white collar schools, I did get a few women. But does anybody know the answer to this question? Because they're teaching it in a lot of STEM camps and things that I'm now running across kids that know what the first computer programmer looked like. Okay. Did anybody picture that? It's Ada Lovelace. So even if kids picture a female, which I love, she doesn't have glasses, and she's very feminine. They do not picture the Princess Leia hair. But she was credited in 1815 as the first computer programmer. Now, that does not mean a computer like we picture it today. I have another whole, let's see if I do with this, another whole slideshow that's linked from that. And this shows a little video, and it shows what the first computer looked like in the 1800s. So I won't spend a lot of time going into her background, because it's probably going to take all I can do just to get back to my other slideshow. But that is an interesting activity just to get them started. And just thinking outside of the box a little bit of what the first computer programmer looked like. And now that I did that, I can go out of full screen, which should make my life a little easier. So the point of the activity, once you identify Ada Lovelace, is this is a very simple game called Ada Says. I will not make you do it because most of you have devices on your lap, but it's basically Simon Says. So the kids, I started, and I would do if-then statements. Ada says, if you are wearing red, then stand up. Ada says, if you are wearing blue, clap your hands. So then clap your hands. I have a hard time getting that then statement in. And you can even, with older kids, add an else conditional. Ada says, if you are ready for lunch, then walk out the door, else stay seated. So it's very simple, but it does help them to get that conditional mindset. It's a great brain break. And even if you're practicing the if, then, else, and saying it like I even have to do when I'm doing it, it's good practice for that. And I only do the first couple, and then I have kids come up and then they lead the group. I wish I could show you all kinds of videos of my kids doing these activities, but with all their little faces, like I just can't, I can't show you this and just zoom in on them hopping on one foot and do it justice. So I don't have any videos that way. But now you can have this session resource link, and if you all dash for the door, I'll know you'll be like, okay, I got it. There's a bit.ly up there, and there is a QR code that will give you this presentation. And I'm usually pretty good about sharing in Google. I am an instructional tech specialist in my district, so what that means is I'm the iPad lady. Right now I'm the bot lady, and all things fun, but I do staff development with our teachers, and I go in and I co-teach and work with the teachers and model things with them. So let me know if you have issues, but like I said, I usually don't have too much trouble with it. Looks like people are in. So a variation of this I have on the next slide that they can do is a dance party, which code.org does do a dance party. Is everybody good with that? I can put it back up at any point. So they can do a dance party, instead of just hop on one foot, they can do some sequencing that Ada says, hop on your foot, 1 foot, and then go forward 5, back 3, and they can turn it into a dance party. And also for younger kids, I liked this. I haven't done this one yet, but I found Ada says chomp like an alligator. So you can get some language arts things in there, or be as quiet as a mouse. That kind of thing. Get some similes in there, metaphors, those kinds of things. And the underlines they're usually links that go out to, and that one is an unplugged. And I hate that dance, but what are you going to do? That's what they're going to do. The other unplugged one that I did do a variation on is event-driven programming. So it's called the Big Event. Anybody ever do the Big Event in code.org? Okay, so it talks about how in programming and in games, which kids understand, when you press the space bar, if you're on a computer, or click the mouse or tap on something, your character is going to do a certain action. What I adapted from code.org is some cards that the kids had. So I put them in groups of about 4 or 5, and I had big index cards and I had animal stickers. So I put different animal stickers on the cards, and the first thing they did is they would touch the frog sticker if it was on their card, and the rest of the group had to do that action. So there was one person that was causing the event, and the rest of them were doing the action. And then from there, then they got just shapes on a card, and they determined what would happen with those specific shapes. But as I was looking through for resources just the other day, I found LinkedIn has some computer coding resources. Now, they want you to buy the course for $39.99, but as I'm sure many of you do, I look for what parts of it are free. And they actually had this on event-driven programming.
Using the polling method to check for the pizza delivery wasn't very...
I'm not going to show you the whole thing, but I thought this was interesting because it focuses on real-world events. So it gives the kids that connection. So I'll just show you a little bit of this.
And it was pretty exhausting running up and down those stairs. Luckily, there's a better way to wait for the pizza guy: event-driven programming. I can just lay here on the bed, waiting for an event to occur. And when that event finally does occur, it'll interrupt my waiting state, and only then will I have to get up off the bed to handle that event with the appropriate action. There are a lot of different types of events that I'm prepared to handle. One example is a timer event. The pizza company promises that they'll deliver the pizza in 30 minutes or less, and I've decided to give them a few minutes of slack, so I've set a timer for 45 minutes. And if I haven't received my pizza by then, I should probably give them a call to see if there's a problem with the order. Now that the timer event has interrupted my waiting state, I should handle it like I said I would, by giving the pizza company a call. Hi, I'm still waiting on that pizza. Ah, okay, see you soon. Stuck in traffic. Well, now that I'm done handling that timer event, I can return back to my waiting state.
So I like how it's infusing the vocabulary, but also doing it in a way that is something that kids can relate to, like waiting for the pizza guy. So I'm going to skip ahead. I'm going to show you one little
Events,
piece.
like a button press. Ah, the doorbell. That must be the pizza. Now I'll handle that event by going to get the pizza. So I'll go down the stairs, but only once this time. And now I can meet the pizza guy. Oh, I hear my phone ringing upstairs. Normally I'd answer my phone right away, but I'm in the middle of handling this doorbell ringing event. As an event-driven program, I can only handle one event at a time, and I'll do so in the order that those events occur. That means it's very important that I don't take too long to answer the door, otherwise I might miss that phone call. So, without further ado, hey, you made it. Here, keep the change.
So what I'd like to do with this one, first of all, I just love the way that he explains it in context and it's real world, and they have some other things that are free in there as well. But what I'd like to do with this one is challenge the kids to do some little skits and role playing where they could apply real world events similar to this one, and I really feel like that that's going to give them a concrete understanding of what the meaning of conditional or event-driven programming is before they actually are doing it on any device. So that's a new resource that I just found. All right. So I actually have a lot of communication activities because kids are not very good at following or giving directions, I find, in my world. So the more tasks that you can give them where they are practicing giving complete and concise directions, the better that's going to help them, because programming and coding are very, very concise. You have to, if you leave something out or you do something in the wrong order, it is flat out not going to work. So one of the ones that I do is an airplane drawing activity where they have to each make an airplane, but I have a book where they have paper airplane models and they have to describe to their partner what to do step by step. Another one that my 6th graders did, I think last spring, that they absolutely loved was a tangram activity. So you find pictures and those resources are on there, but they take a picture that is built with a tangram and they have to describe to their partner how to build the picture. And they're not really supposed to do a lot of correcting along the way, but they do. I think a lot of us have seen the build a structure where they're using, in code.org, they use toothpicks and gumdrops. I don't like all the sugar on the outside of the gumdrops because they're messy, so I tend to use mini marshmallows. And yesterday at a session they were talking about using spaghetti and mini marshmallows. And what I liked, or regular marshmallows maybe, but what I liked about that one is with the spaghetti, because it's longer, I always go for something that can hold something, but you can go for the tallest structure that will stand. So I think I'll probably be using spaghetti. But a very, very simple one is back-to-back drawings. So using iPads or paper, you pair two kids together, one of them draws a picture, and then with their back to their partner, they have to describe to their partner how to draw that picture. It is very interesting what they end up with. So it's a great way for them to self-assess how well they are able to articulate their thoughts and ideas to someone or something else. So, and basically what you're teaching them is how to build algorithms, pay attention to detail, and their listening skills. And you'll see I have a lot of notes at the bottom, and those will be in there for you as well. Okay, before I get into binary, which I could live, I love these activities. Any questions on anything? Anybody do anything similar so far on the communication, collaboration? Because I like to come away with ideas too. Okay, so I had a 5th grade teacher who asked me if I would do a coding club a couple years ago, and somehow I stumbled across binary. And I just loved it, and I learned a lot about it. Now, I don't do it as in-depth most of the time anymore, but there are a few activities I have in there that are very basic, and I am going to get some volunteers for this one to see how you can see how it goes. So binary basically introduces kids to a new number system. So instead of just learning Roman numerals, they're going to learn a base 2 number system. And they are even going to, if they're elementary kids, practice their computational skills. But it's possible with secondary. You can tell me how that would fit as well. So I could show you the video, but fortunately for me, this is not a heavy resource, so I brought it along. So I need, let's see how far, because we can go as far as we want, but let's go with 5 volunteers. You don't have to raise your hand, just walk up, and if you don't volunteer, I'll be like my mother and I'll volunteer ya. It's not hard. You're just going to have to stand up here with a sign around your neck.
I'll volunteer.
So just stand in a line facing the audience. If you don't want the light in your
I don't
eye.
want to be blinded.
Down a little bit. In a line. Yep. So I'm going to give you that. Hang that around your neck, or just hold it up if you really don't want to. I don't give these to kids. This is the one I use in my grad class, and not be too scared of it. Okay. So I need another volunteer. We're going to make it kind of hard on them to write a number between like 1 and 50 on that. Since you, yep, and then you can be after him. Yep, they'll just give you the dry erase marker. Okay, so the way that binary works is, and I always have a cheat sheet for myself, but it's a base 2 number system. What do you notice about every number to the left of the previous number? Like we go from 1 to 2, 2 to 4, 4 to 8, 8 to 16. They're double. And that's how binary works. But it is also an on-off system. So if the numbers are showing, they are on, and if they are flipped on the other side, so we're not seeing the numbers, they are off. So if we wanted to represent 1, everybody would be off except for 1. Go ahead and turn 1 back off. So what we're going to do, I'll give them the first number, but then I'm going to have some people in the audience.
What was the number range?
We're going to keep it between, you can do between 1 and 75, but we're going to keep it kind of low for them. And you're just writing a number. So what if we wanted to do the number 3? Right, that's all the practice you're getting. Okay. So, show them your number.
Right.
It's 19. No, well, no, you need to know what your number is. Yeah. So it's 1, 2, 4, 8, 16, and we want 19. Perfect. So you guys are off. All right, now everybody turn off. All right, what's the next number we have? 10.
Oh, no, that wasn't a 10.
Oh, what is it? A 70.
You said that under 75.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. So you tell me what's, well, I should have had you do this first. What's the highest number we can do? Let's ask that. What's the highest number we can do? So we have 16, 20, 31.
Yeah.
So that was my bad. Now, we could go higher for older kids. What would the next number be? 32. How about after that? 64. So sorry, that was my bad. So, do you have a number now that they can actually achieve? How about 13?
What?
Nope. 2 turn back over.
Yeah.
Perfect. Everybody got a turn. Okay. So you get the idea, and you get how if you did this with groups, thank you very much. With groups of kids, this does not require a lot of materials. You can just put them up here. That's fine. Thank you so much. So this is an easy one once you have them made, but you make a couple sets of these, and you get kids sitting, you get them in groups around the room, and it takes 6 kids in a group, 5 to do the numbers and 1 to give them the number. But you can have them figure out different computations. So it's a great way for them to practice skills. They've got to be team players. They've got to be thinking about their team. Anybody in here teach secondary math? Something that they, like what could they do with that would not just be straight computation? Is there anything you can think of where they would end up with a specific number?
Solve for X. Yeah.
Solve for X? Okay. So, I do think there's some adaptations, but I don't teach secondary math, so I'll leave that up to you. But it is fun. It's better to them than doing, and it's great to get their minds thinking a different way. And like I said, you can extend it out to higher numbers. That's usually just what I start with. So just in case you get back and you're like, what the heck was binary lineup? There are some lovely kids from the UK acting it out. Those are not my students. And I will show you at the end with the website that has that in there too. So while we're doing binary, the next thing I like to do is a binary clock. And this can be fun because it is a way to tell time that is different than what kids are used to. And I also have, I've done this one quite a few times, I have another Google slideshow linked into this. So it's time to get binary. So what I do when I'm with kids, and you can see the notes, I say, does anybody know what that is? Well, gee whiz, people, it's a clock. Can't you tell that? And I'm surprised nobody's seen a clock before. Well, okay, what time does it say? Now you might figure it out because we just did the binary lesson, and you can make a prediction. What I tell the kids is make a prediction, don't call it out, and then later you can see if you're right. So this is a real thing. Like you can buy these on Amazon. And I didn't make this up, and it's not just for teaching. So, okay, well you didn't know that time. How about this one? How about if I said it's what time I get up in the morning? And I usually like to do this on a whiteboard when I can, because then I can write on it with a dry erase marker. But how about if I add this? So the left 2 are hours. This is minute. So it's a base 2 number system, so each number is double the one before it. So we just have 1, 2, 4, 8. So now what time does it say? 7:15. Now, that is much later than I usually get up in the morning. That's what time I might like to get up in the morning. But I thought it might be more applicable to kids. So we have 1 and 2 are 3, and 4 is 7, and then 1, and then this is 4 and 1 is 5. So 7:15. How about that time? Without the numbers now. Oh, that is the same thing, sorry. And then this one I have the answer for. So the way I do this with kids, and you can figure out, oh, yeah, I do have that answer. Oh, it's 5:32. The way I do this with kids is you can either give them a blank worksheet to color in sometimes, and I try to keep it on morning times because this is a 24-hour clock. So you could just say it was AM or PM with kids, but binary clocks are 24 hours, so that gets confusing. And that's why I only have the 1 and the 2 over on the left side, so it keeps it limited. But you can have them color it in. I actually did this at a STEM day, and I gave them each an index card and some little dot stickers, and they had to put the stickers on to represent a time, just to give them something tangible. But there are even, get back out of here. Like I said, you can buy binary clocks. I thought about buying it, but this is linked into the presentation, Binary Clock Fun, and they show some different times, but there are even different times that represent time of day that when people look, they know it's the rectangle time. You can tie it into geometry with the time and drawing different shapes, and that's a little dog, and you've got a small house. So there are some other things that you can do with it, and this is kind of a nice lead into what is coming up down the road. But it's just kind of, it's fun, it's interesting, and it gets kids thinking in a different way. But no, I have not purchased a binary clock. I don't really think that I would be capable of looking at that in the morning. And like I said, these are all linked. That link, Binary Clock is Fun, goes out to that website. Okay, so like I said, those pictures are a nice segue into my next favorite thing. Notice they're all my favorites. It depends on when I'm doing it or with whom. They actually are really fun, and like I said, you can infuse them, I think, into any curriculum, and my teachers felt like just as something a little bit different, that they're still doing some problem solving and they're thinking differently. So the next one that I really enjoy is image representation, and you have to know a little bit of binary for this one. These are in a very purposeful order, and this definitely, I have had some middle school teachers tell me that they think their middle schoolers would really enjoy it. So you're deciding if the colors are on or off, and this one gives you a code. This one I actually made, but if they're on, the first one is off. Yeah, these are actually off and these are on. So the first one is off, and then you count 3 that are on and 1 that's off. So this is a way to represent the letter A. You can do grid activities where the kids make their own image representation, and they color the boxes in, and then they write the numbers for each other. There is a link on the website with this activity that have some very simple ones that are already completed. This one is one that I made for a bot event that happened in my absence last night back at one of my elementary schools, that I tied it into the One Book, One School that they were reading. So I made a picture, and I can show you that. That's not really coding without computers on the kids' end, but on your end, but it is on the kids' end. And then these are binary puzzles for kids. This was a website that I found. It does ask that you don't post the worksheets that you download anywhere, because she, I guess, wants people to go in and get them. But you can go in here and you can download Teach Kids Binary in one simple step. So that gives you a nice visual too, how when they're coloring them in, they end up with a very simple graphic. Obviously, the more boxes you have, the smaller boxes the boxes are, the better your quality is going to be, and I think that's a valid discussion to have with older kids, that if they're going to have a really quality picture, they're going to need more pixels. Let me see. I wasn't going to show you this, but I feel bad not to now. Oh, it's not. It is. Okay, that's what happens when I wasn't going to show you something. Keeping track of everything can be a challenge. And if I go to recent, I think it's going to be. I was just going to show you how I made, but maybe I'll link it in how I made these, because I made them in Google Drive in a spreadsheet with conditional formatting to do the answer key. But let me save that for the end. I have a bad habit of getting off track. So basically, in a Google Sheet, you fill everything in with a 1, and then you go in and replace the zeros with where you want the kids to color in. But you can use conditional formatting that it will actually show you the image, so you kind of have an answer key without you coloring it all in yourself. But I'll save that for the end because I gotta find that one. So I had a high school teacher that took an online course that we offer in our district on coding. And one piece of it was coding without computers. And he actually had his photography class use one of their photographs, and then they had to color it in as their pixel example, and then with 1s and 0s they had to manually do the coding. They would probably love if I now showed them how they could do that in a Google spreadsheet, but I'll save that for another time. But I thought that was a pretty cool application that he used at the high school level. Obviously, like this example I loved because this is a great one to do because of the contrast. The other one was not quite as clear, but then the kids got a sense of what was easy to do in black and white and what actually was a little more difficult. All right, another one that's fun is the color sort game. And the one I'm going to show you, these are not our kids. I don't put the colored t-shirts on them, and I actually use colored balls. And this 6th grade teacher that I have the picture of, what she did is she made colored tags for them to put around their neck and colored cards for them to pass. So that is the difference and the low prep way to do it instead of fruit. But this is a really good way to explain the game.
Traffic can have problems with congestion, and without well-designed rules, the system might even come to a stop. The same happens on computer networks, which need to be designed carefully to make sure that information is delivered quickly to the right place. To give an idea of the problems involved, we're going to be passing fruit around a network of 5 people. The goal will be to get each person to hold the right colour of fruit, like this. To start the activity, the fruit is distributed randomly. You're only allowed to pass fruit to someone beside you who has an empty hand. This move isn't allowed because the blue boy isn't next to the green girl. You may have to give up your own coloured fruit to help the team reach the goal. With a bit of cooperation, each person ends up with the right pieces of fruit. You can experiment with different layouts for your network. The straight line version isn't as hard as it might seem at first. For more information about this activity and the Unplugged project, visit our website at csunplugged.org.
So, to be honest, a lot of my stuff comes from csunplugged.org, and that is at the end of my presentation. There's a link. Some of the CF Unplugged activities have ended up in some form in code.org in their unplugged stuff, but all my binary came from there because they have such complete descriptions. Like, to me, it's perfect. I'm not a computer programmer. Like, my undergrad is in elementary ed, and my master's degree is in instructional technology. I did not learn binary anywhere, and they explain it so well. Love the British accents, and all of their movies have them, and they just have some really unique ideas, I think. So, like I said, you can make your own cards. You can use them with story characters. For my event that I missed last night, can you tell I'm a little bitter? It was a family read-in night, but what I made for them is characters from the story. It was the Wild Robot Escapes. So I have characters from the story that I made for them to hang around their neck, and then they have to end up with the character that's on their card. So very adaptable. I really had no idea how many people I was going to have, so I couldn't figure out what to bring as far as that went. But it really is challenging. You learn a lot about the personalities in the group, because you typically have one person in the group who is kind of bossing the others around. You have one person in the group who's just sitting there like, yeah, dude, just tell me where to pass my stuff. Like, so you are still going to have that, but as a teacher, you can walk around and kind of observe that. You'll have groups that will finish pretty quickly. I've done this with adults. It's not that easy. I never have done it. I just would rather be the teacher, and I watch everybody else struggle. And then the other suggestion that they make that I haven't done either is you have them stand in a line. I was gonna make you guys do that, but I have not tried that yet. But this gives such a great idea. Any other applications that you can think of? Because I thought, I haven't done parts of speech, but you have someone who's a noun, you have someone who's a verb, adjective kinds of things, multiples. Okay, well, if you just do the colors, you're still going to get the team building and the collaboration, and you can mix them up a little, maybe put all your bossy people together and see how that works for them. And all of your, like, I'll sit back and let someone else do the work people. Okay. So another one that I absolutely adore that I got from this, that is a huge honkin' mat, is sorting networks. So basically, there are 6 pieces of data that go in at one end in a random order, and they come out at the other end in, if you're doing numbers, in numeric order. You can use any 6 pieces of information, but it has to be something that can be sorted on a linear scale, either from greatest to least, or highest to lowest, or alphabetically, or something like that. So this is off their website. I'll show you where that is in a minute. But first, I want to show you an example of how it works. And again, these are not my kids.
So what's going to happen is these guys are going to travel through the super fun mat, and when they reach the other end, they'll be in sorted order.
So you can do the paper version of this. I have a smaller wall hanging version, but I do have a big giant mat that is clearly the most fun.
Alright? So how that's going to work is each of you are going to step forward along the blue line and stop when you get to a red box. Alright? Go. Cool. Okay, so red boxes are comparing boxes. So you need to compare your number with the number of the person standing next to you. And I want you to put up your hand if you've got the higher number. The person who's standing next to you in the red box, so you don't need to look at circle. Okay, that's cool. So we've got 3 people who have the highest number. So higher numbers go right and lower numbers go left, and just follow the blue lines. Okay, so you're in another red comparing box again. So who's got the higher number out of these 2? Yeah. So if you've got the higher number, follow the blue line to your right, and if you've got the lower number, follow the blue line to your left.
I color code mine.
You end up in another comparing box.
Guess what you do here?
The same thing. Same thing. So you got the higher number, so you follow the blue line all the way to the end. Okay, you're finished. Yeah. Okay, so we've got the numbers. You call out your numbers?
1, 2, 3,
Do them face the audience.
4.
Yeah, turn around and face the camera. Alright, so you're all in sort of order. How was it?
So, I usually have the kids, depending on, or the people, depending on their age, write their own numbers on a card, and I will give them a number range depending on their age. They think I'm magic when they come out at the other end, and like they think it's so cool. And the real challenge with this for me was creating the map. So, to save you some headaches, I thought I would talk, I'll show you where to get the worksheets in a minute, but I will talk about my mats. So the first time I did this, I used pillowcases on the floor and yarn. Don't do that. It takes too long to set up, and the way that they're sorted, you keep having to look, and I didn't get them in the right order, and it didn't work the first time, plus you're crawling around on the floor. So then, I have a bad habit of not taking pictures of things when I do them, because I'm usually busy facilitating. But I made a big giant mat on the floor similar to theirs, was my in-between, but I made mine big enough that 2 adults could stand in side by side. So it is humongous. And I made it out of heavy gauge plastic that my husband bought for an adult slip and slide that never happened. And I have been stealing a lot from that roll of heavy gauge plastic, but he hasn't noticed yet. So you can do that. You could probably do it out of a plastic shower curtain or tablecloth, but that's a little small. It is bigger than that. Theirs was, like the kids you could even see, they were tight side by side. Most adults don't want to get that cozy, so I made it that it was big enough, and I have taken it with the high school kids. You can do height. A cool one that I saw that they had another video, they did it notes on, like notes. So I borrowed the handbells from the music teacher one time, and we did that. They had a hard time listening for which note was higher. They did not notice that the notes were listed on the end of the bell, or that might have made it A, B, C, D, but I was glad they didn't find that out. They broke one of the clappers on the bell, so we are no longer allowed to borrow those. But you could do that if they were your own. So I made a wall hanging mat. I did almost bring that. If I didn't realize I was going to have a metal door, I might have. But that works really well. You use the metal clips, like you can clip things in, and they have the magnet on the back. And then you can just put tiny index cards or tiny cut cards, I guess, that I cut up. And then the kids can follow their way down the path on the wall hanging one. It is more efficient. It is just not as much fun as the big mat. So I pull that mat out, and it's like a party game. It's almost as good as Twister. So I took this one to the grad course as well. I just realized that I didn't go back to full screen. And a couple, you can't see it well, but I didn't want you to see it. I had a couple grad students at Millersville, and no, I don't have their permission, but they're adults. No, they know I'm showing it. They said, well, how could we do more than 6 numbers? And I'm like, I don't know. If you were my middle school students, I would say you figure it out and you tell me. So they actually made their own sorting network that would sort additional pieces of information. So that's one way you could adapt this and make it more challenging for your secondary kids. You can do life cycle stages, starting, as long as there are 6 pieces of information and they can be sorted on a linear scale, you could do some things that way. And they do have printable worksheets that you can get off the website. It looks a little bit different than the sorting mats, but some of them you can do that it'll create it with numbers for you, or they do have a blank one that you can print. I don't like that well, I don't know. It starts at the bottom, goes to the top. That seems backwards to me, but I do color code my lines for them, so that the high number follows the red line and the low number follows the blue line. But this shows you, like, this one's going this way, this one's going this way, this one's going this way. This is why I don't lay it out and do it every time, because it's just too time consuming. So I just made a big giant mat. I share it with other people in the district, but it's huge. Too big for carry-on. So, and that gives you a nice visual. But you can do a lot of different things, and they do have a blank one on here somewhere too. There it is, not blank. So they can write their own things in there. I do find on the mats with the boxes, because my mats start with 3 boxes. I don't do this, but I do number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Otherwise, I can't tell them where to go and stand. I did learn that the hard way. So super fun. Okay. We're doing on 11:17. Pretty good. Couple more things. I will talk a little bit about bots. It's not zero technology, but if you don't have a lot of bots, these are all things that you can do with low-cost bots or with just a couple of them. We got B-bots this year in my district, so I've been doing a lot of things with that. You can also do this with the Code and Go mouse. The B-bots are rechargeable. The Code and Go mouse is less expensive, but it takes AA batteries. So we did fact families. This doesn't go with this, it was just a chart. But where they had to pull out, I had little snowmen and penguin cards that I gave to each group, and they had to pull out 6, and then they had to make a number sentence from it, and then they basically just laid them on a mat that didn't have numbers and coded the Go mouse to go around it, or the B-bot, I guess. I use these, I made great big 100 charts, but I found they were too big, so I split them 1 to 50 and 51 to 100, where the kids do fact practice. Let's see if this will play. And what I love about this one is you can see him stepping the Go or the B-bot through as he's coding. He's moving it through, he's pressing the arrows. So I can't find too many elementary kids who still don't need a little practice putting themselves into the bot position and figuring out, do you go left or right, and what that sequence is, but I tie this into fact practice for them too. I do love the OSBots. We do a lot with them. But I like to make my own challenges. So the left is a snowman challenge, and the right one is actually and this was 5th or 6th grade, I forget. They had to read 3 Billy Goat's Gruff because that's my 3.5-year-old grandson's favorite, current favorite. I read it to them, I guess. They didn't know that story. I was actually really amazed. But then I made them this sheet, and they had to code the OSBot to go through the story and actually retell the story. We learned that I didn't give them enough time for that. Yeah, this one's on a video. So I redid it, and I put it on 11x14 paper because they didn't have enough time for the dialogue they needed on the bridge. They needed a couple pauses. I find that starting with OSBots with a sheet where they color the squares in, they do much better than just starting with the free drawing because they learn how big the boxes need to be. It amazes me. I didn't tell the older kids to stay in the lines when they colored the boxes, and for some of them, they just scribbled it, and it doesn't work. So they learn that the OSBot's a little particular, but it's a great starting way. You don't have to have a lot of OSBots for it because they can color the sheets in and then test it with the OSBot. So I tell them it's a programming language that OSBot speaks in colors. The read-in night that they did last night with the bot room, we only had 6 OSBots available, and there were hundreds of kids that came through. So I'm just happy we ended up with 6 at the end of the night. But they were coloring them in, and I told the middle school tech kids that were helping only give an OSBot when they're ready to test it. A limitation is you cannot erase. So what I have found is if you take address labels and you just snip them across, you get almost the perfect size of label to cover up their mistakes, and they can color over top of it, and that works beautifully to correct mistakes. OSBot does sell things that you can put over top, but the Avery labels are cheaper, and like I said, you just snip, snip, snip across the label, and they can put it over top. It's a lot better than them getting 6 pieces of paper. I also do coding camps at Millersville with kids in the summer, and this is not them, but I found this and did this with them last year. I love this one. So I'll just show you another OSBot challenge. So it's a strip of paper, or I use poster board. they code it to go forward and turn around. This is not the cool part. This is the cool part. Has anybody ever seen this? Kids love it. Now, some of them went the whole way around and then it just kept rolling. Or you can do two pieces crossed over. Makes it a little more stemmy. So they could, yeah, as I say, sometimes it'll turn, sometimes it won't at an intersection, so it's kind of hit or miss what it's going to do, but super fun. The kids I did that with at my coding camp last summer loved that one. Okay, so I always say I'm going to be done early and I never am. So let me just finish up the last couple. Oh, Dash Robot has Puzzlets that you can use. Anybody ever see them? It's a coding tray and they're called Puzzlets. So if you don't have an iPad, the Puzzlets tray costs about $90, cheaper than an iPad or not a Kindle maybe, but they can actually just put the commands in the tray and it has Bluetooth and it connects with the Dash Robot if you want to get a Dash Robot and Puzzlet. And then this last parting thought I will leave you with is using bots to teach deconstruction. I came across this recently. So the bits won't do this, but the newer Evo robots you can code with the Oza Blockly website. So basically, you go and I stole one of theirs. You go and you load an Ozabot or Ozabots with the program, so the kids aren't coding. You put them in groups and you give them the Ozabot and you tell them, turn this on and figure out what the program is doing. So the one I downloaded and did actually with an adult group recently, what it does is when you put your hand behind the Ozabot, it has sensors on the Evo and it moves forward. When you put it in front, it moves backwards. And if they go so far as to put it in front and back, it's going to turn. So it's deconstruction. You just hand it to them and they have to figure out what the program was. The next level I would like to do that is I'm always in favor of have the kids create them for each other. So they're doing that that kind of backwards thinking. Yeah, it was called energy nudge. All of the resources that I referred to, the Coding Without Computers is my website that is always a work in progress. The Computer Science in a Box, they just updated in 2018. Some of these resources are older, but so am I, and I don't think older is always bad. The csunplugged.org has tons of stuff. And then, of course, the code.org unplugged lessons. Thank you for coming and staying with me. I will put the first slide up you have it. Reach out to me. I would be happy to help, answer any questions, share anything cool that you do. There's lots of good stuff out there. So thanks for spending your last hour with me.
Where are you from?
Lancaster in
Okay.
Eastern.
I'm from Hershey, and I've heard about the Lancaster to Pittsburgh flight because I come here often.
Yeah.
So, what did you think about it? How
It's
was it?
fine on the way over. Now,
Yeah.
I came on Sunday. I heard the Saturday flight was not as smooth.
Okay.
I'm glad it's not raining because it's nicer today
Yeah.
than I thought.
Yeah.
Ours was super smooth. Now,
Okay.
I will have to say, I had those C-bands on that have the pressure points, and I did take some kind of natural motion sickness because I hadn't been on a plane that small in many
Yeah,
years.
that's what I was always worried
It
about.
was fine. And I live in Lidditz, actually, so
Okay.
it's like 5 minutes from my house.
Did they take you to the international airport, or where did they drop you off here?
Yeah, it was the regular Pittsburgh airport. We had to go inside to get our luggage, I guess, because they didn't. That was kind of weird because it was right there. So that part took a little bit of time. And there weren't a ton of flights. Like there was one going back at 11 this morning that I obviously couldn't get. But yeah, I got it in October. It was $78. So if you get it far enough in advance, now I think other people paid $180.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would definitely do it again.
Okay.
It beat the
Yeah.
turnpike
I've
any
heard
day.
people talk about it, and I'm always
Yeah.
like, it's so small. I don't know if I can do
Yeah, it was 10 including
Yeah.
the pilot. Hi.
Thank you. I tried to get your QR code
Yeah.
to get the
And the QR code didn't work. There was
Yeah.
one on there.
The Bitly.
Yeah. What about? Let me try.
Because is that what I need to get your slides? Or are you putting that?
No, that is, and I can put it. I will put it in the resources too. I really just didn't want people to see the one activity. So is the
See,
QR
it's
code
not
working?
taking me there. It's taking me to different.
In fact, I'll put it up here. You don't think it's anything? You know what, let me do this.
No.
Instead of going through Bitly, like I made the QR code from
Just to make it, okay.
my Bitly thing, let me just get it straight out of my Google Drive.
No, but maybe he'll say at least.
Can't imagine that's it. So that should be the QR code. Try that, and then I'll download it and put it in. Yep.
Yep, that's it. Super. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
maybe
you
that
very
was it
much.
because I made a QR code of the Bitly, but I'll put it in there for people.
Fantastic.
Thank
I
you.
loved the passing of the colored fruit.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, so many things you could do.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
That
Yeah.
you know, everybody has something they take away, and that's
And
like I'm showing everybody
That's
at
how,
school.
yeah, that's why,
Uh-huh.
and I wonder if you could do it with 7 people. Like, I wonder what the
Yeah.
limit, like, you know, you wonder what the limits are
Uh-huh.
on.
And
that.
that's what you give one of those kids to challenge you.
Yep.
How good is that?
And I have a big tub of colored balls on my grandson's ball pit that I hate. I didn't buy it, but that I keep at school. That and then the colored cards, and they like that. But she did it with she didn't. My teacher did it.
Yeah,
You
you
can do
know,
so many things.
so many things. So
Yeah.
thank you very much.
Thanks for coming.